Right now, we are living through, honestly, the greatest era of wealth creation and innovation in human history. I mean, the global economic pie has never been bigger.
Yeah, it really hasn't. It's expanding at an incredible rate.
Exactly. But
Mhm.
here's the wild part, and this is what we're getting into today. Mathematically, median incomes for a lot of people are actually lower today than they were back in the 1990s.
Right, which just sounds impossible when you say it out loud.
It really does. And middle-class employment in several sectors is just flatlining. So how is that even mathematically possible? Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're exploring the existential collision between human society and, rapidly accelerating technology.
And we're really unpacking the sources here, looking at the realities of digital well-being, the future of education, decentralized finance, and even what happens when we try to take our economy to other planets.
Yeah, it goes all the way to Mars, which we'll get to later. But first, what we're looking at is the absolute definition of an economic paradox, right?
Right. Totally. I mean, what we're seeing, according to the McKinsey and Rotman research we're diving into, is this phenomenon known as the Great Decoupling.
The great decoupling. Okay, break that down for us.
So historically, capital and labor basically move together. Like if you wanted to increase your company's output, you had to hire more human workers.
Right, you need more stuff, you hire more people.
Exactly. The wealth grew and the wages grew right alongside it. But today, because of these exponential advances in automation and machine learning, those two things have just completely decoupled.
Wow, so they're totally untethered from each other now.
Yeah, technology is making the pie bigger, but the slices are being distributed in a fundamentally different way. The money isn't flowing back to the worker in the same way.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for you, the listener? I mean, for your paycheck, your daily routine, your sanity. That is our mission today.
Because we need to figure out if technology is just this unstoppable autonomous force rolling over us, or, if it's a tool we still actually have the power to control.
Right. And to understand where we're going, we really have to look at what we're losing
Hmm.
and why that might, surprisingly, actually be a good thing.
Yeah, so to get that, we need to look at the transition from the first machine age to the second machine age.
Okay, I love this framing from the sources. Tell us about the first machine age,
Well, the first machine age, that was during the Industrial Revolution, that basically replaced our physical muscles. We built steam engines to do the heavy lifting.
which was great because it meant we didn't have to carry heavy rocks around anymore.
Exactly. It allowed humans to focus on tasks requiring, like, dexterity and judgment. But now, the second machine age is replacing our cognitive
Our
muscles.
cognitive muscle, so like our thinking.
Yes, we are building algorithms to handle routine thinking and basic information processing, and that is a huge shift.
Which naturally brings up the question of what happens to the jobs. Because if our cognitive muscles are being replaced, the numbers reflect a massive shift. I mean, right now, about 65% of the U.S. workforce is engaged in information processing jobs.
Right, that's a huge chunk of the population.
It is. We're talking about, sorting legal documents, running basic financial spreadsheets, doing data entry, and computers are just simply faster and more accurate at those specific tasks.
They absolutely are. And globally, the models predict that around 15% of the workforce, which, by the way, is roughly 400 million workers, could be displaced by automation by the year 2030.
Wait, 400 million people having their cognitive tasks outsourced to machines. That number sounds terrifying on its face.
Oh, it's a staggering figure. But it really requires context, because those exact same economic models predict that between 555 million and 890 million jobs could actually be gained in that exact same time frame.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're gaining way more than we're losing.
Exactly. We tend to think of automation as this complete one-to-one replacement of a human being, but the data shows that only about 5% of occupations can be fully automated with current technology.
Just 5%. That's way lower than I would have thought.
Right. What is actually happening is that about 30% of the activities and 60% of all jobs are going to change.
Okay, so it's not the destruction of the job itself. It's really the destruction of the most tedious parts of the job.
Yes, exactly.
You look at the medical field for proof of this. The sources mention this incredible medical breakthrough. Researchers at Geisinger used a machine learning algorithm to analyze brain scans for intracranial hemorrhaging.
Yeah, that study is fascinating.
It is. The algorithm reduced diagnostic times by up to 96%. It spots the bleed almost instantly. And the key here is that isn't a computer taking a radiologist's job.
Right. The radiologist isn't fired.
No. That is a computer doing the data processing part of the job instantly. so the doctor can actually, save the patient's life. Or spend time discussing the treatment plan with the family.
It complements the human labor. It strips away all that mechanical data sorting so the human can focus entirely on the actual application of that data.
Hold on, though. As you describe these routine jobs disappearing, I keep thinking about a historical analogy from the sources, which is the electronic calculator.
Oh yeah, the calculator panic.
Right. When the calculator became widely available, teachers and professionals literally protested. They thought mathematics as a discipline was just dead.
They really did. They assumed the human brain would just atrophy because, we weren't doing long division by hand anymore.
Exactly. But it didn't kill math. It just freed humans from manual arithmetic so we could focus on calculus, engineering, and higher-level problem solving.
That's a perfect parallel.
And we are watching the exact same transition in modern programming right now. We aren't going to sit there and type out basic syntax for much longer. The AI will write the code. We're going to become system architects. We dictate the logic, and the machine does the typing.
Yes, the calculator is a great historical parallel. But there's another one from the research that highlights the economic ripple effects even better, I think.
Oh, which one?
The automatic loom.
Ah, right, the loom. Tell us about that.
So during the Industrial Revolution, weavers were understandably terrified that mechanized looms would completely destroy their livelihoods. They thought it was the end of their profession.
Sure, which makes sense if a machine is doing your exact job.
Right. But the automatic loom made the production of cloth vastly cheaper. And because clothing became affordable, consumer demand just spiked massively across the globe.
Oh, wow. So cheaper goods meant way more people buying them.
Exactly. And that unprecedented demand didn't just employ people, it created entirely new global industries. We got fashion design, international retail chains, global shipping, and logistic operations.
That's incredible. So the automatic loom didn't destroy human value at all. It just relocated it.
Precisely. The modern equivalent of throwing the shuttle on the loom,
Yeah.
those routine office tasks we talked about, those dissolve.
Okay, so the manual execution dissolves.
Mm.
But human curation, complex problem solving, and emotional connection, those become our primary irreplaceable value in the job market.
Exactly. And if the very nature of human value is evolving from manual execution to system architecture and relational work, the institutions that train us have to completely reinvent themselves to survive.
Which brings us to the education system. I think everyone just assumes AI is going to replace the teacher, right? You put a kid in front of an iPad, the AI teaches them math, and the school district saves a bunch of money.
That's the dystopian fear, yeah. But the data shows the complete opposite.
It really does. UNESCO projects that the world actually needs 44 million more teachers by 2030. 34 million more.
Because teaching is fundamentally a relational act. AI handles the scalable, repeatable tasks, like it can grade 300 multiple-choice quizzes in 2 seconds.
Right, which teachers usually hate doing anyway.
Exactly. And it can act as a 247 personalized chatbot, offering a student a hint on their chemistry homework at midnight. But the algorithm cannot read the emotional temperature of a classroom.
No, it definitely can't do that.
It can't pull a struggling student aside and offer empathy or mentorship. So we're moving toward a division of labor where the machine handles the data delivery and the human teacher handles the context and the emotional support.
Which is actually empowering learners to teach themselves outside of the traditional classroom entirely. We're seeing this massive rise of the modern autodidact.
Oh, the self-taught learner. Yeah, the history of that concept in the sources is fascinating.
It really is. Think about the 12th century philosophical novel, Hayam and Yakan. It was written in Andalusia, and it tells the story of this feral boy raised by a gazelle on an isolated island.
Just totally cut off from civilization.
Totally cut off. Without any formal teachers, society, or books, he simply observes nature, uses human reason, and teaches himself the laws of physics and the universe. He is like the archetypal, self-taught human.
It's such a powerful image. And you fast forward to today, and the numbers are wild. Look at software developers on the platform Stack Overflow. 69.1% of them report being entirely or partially self-taught.
That's huge. All 70%.
Yeah. The internet has essentially turned millions of people into feral learners on an island of infinite information. The raw material for learning has been completely democratized.
But education isn't the only institution going through this forced evolution. We are watching a similar, and honestly, perhaps even more disruptive, transformation in banking.
Oh, absolutely. The banking sector is facing a massive upheaval.
Right. If you look at the clash between decentralized finance like Bitcoin and blockchain protocols and the traditional centralized banking system, it's intense. And there's this vivid metaphor from the sources To frame this shift,
The river metaphor, right?
yes, Bitcoin is essentially a wild, untamed river. It's decentralized, it flows continuously, and it operates without any central authority or government oversight.
And traditional banks are looking at this wild river. They aren't dying out. They are just transitioning into engineers.
Right, they're not trying to stop the water.
No, they're building canals, dams, and water filters around that wild river. They're constructing the infrastructure to make decentralized finance usable for the average person.
So banks are basically acting as the water treatment plants.
Exactly. Just as teachers are wrapping AI and human empathy to make it effective, financial institutions are wrapping decentralized crypto networks in institutional trust.
That makes perfect sense. Because the reality is, most people do not want the absolute, unforgiving responsibility of holding their own cryptographic private keys.
No, they definitely don't, because if you lose that key, your life savings are just gone forever. There's no recovery.
Right, people want a password reset button. They want a customer service number to yell at. They want the safety of the canal, not the danger of the rapids.
But the sources raise a really critical warning here about what they call the cashless dystopia.
Yes, this is the scary part of the banking shift.
If all this money goes purely digital, we face a severe structural divide. On one side, you have the sovereign castle.
And the sovereign castle is basically the people who have it all figured out, right?
Exactly. These are the people with robust digital IDs, constant high-speed internet, and sophisticated banking apps. They can navigate the canals perfectly.
But then on the other side,
You have the unbanked rural populations and the elderly. They might be entirely locked out of the global economy simply because they lack a reliable digital connection. It becomes a systemic exclusion.
right, it creates an environment where if you are offline, you're essentially economically invisible.
Which means if currency physically requires a network connection to change hands, then access to the financial internet has to be viewed as a fundamental human necessity, almost like access to municipal water.
Wow, water, electricity, internet. It's on that level.
Yeah.
But that sovereign castle concept doesn't just apply to our bank accounts. It applies to our mental state, too.
Oh, absolutely. The psychological impact is huge.
Because it's one thing to talk about global banking and education, but how is this hyper-digitalization actually feeling inside our own homes and our own minds on, like, a Tuesday night?
Right, moving from societal infrastructure to personal psychology.
Yeah.
And maintaining that digital presence comes with a heavy psychological tax.
A huge tax. The friction is highly measurable. Look at the sociological studies on digital well-being. Specifically, the data coming out of Indonesia right now.
Yeah, those numbers are pretty eye-opening.
They have 221.6 million internet users, and 60% of them are using technology for more than 5 hours a day.
5 hours a day of pure screen time, that is a massive chunk of waking life.
It is, and it highlights this paradox of connection. Because during the pandemic, technology was the ultimate lifeline. It kept businesses running, it kept families connected when they couldn't see each other.
But chronic usage is driving profound physiological and psychological challenges. We see widespread sleep disruption, primarily because exposure to blue light from screens suppresses melatonin production.
Right, it just shatters our circadian rhythm.
Exactly. And on top of that, we see the amplification of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And most ironically, users consistently report a deep feeling of being emotionally disconnected, despite being engaged in constant online interaction.
They're constantly talking to people, but you feel totally alone.
Yes. Which brings us to the concept of decision fatigue at home.
Oh, I love this part of the research.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of smart home technology isn't actually about having a refrigerator that can browse the internet.
Right. Nobody really needs their fridge to check Twitter.
No. It is about removing small, draining daily choices. You set up an out-the-door routine where a single voice command turns off the lights, locks the doors, and adjusts the thermostat.
Or you schedule screen time limits directly at the router level.
Yes. Like the Wi-Fi simply shuts off an hour before bed. It removes the need for a parent to constantly nag their teenager to put the phone away. The argument is just eliminated because the internet outage is an environmental reality.
The router is the bad guy, not the parent.
Exactly. But I have to ask, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, are we just treating the symptoms of technology with more technology? I mean, we are literally using a smart plug on our router to fix the sleep deprivation caused by the smartphone in our pocket.
It feels like a snake eating its own tail, doesn't it?
Yes, it totally does.
It sounds contradictory, but sociologists frame this through the concept of crowding out. The danger of the screen isn't just the glowing pixels, it's that the time spent staring at it is crowding out beneficial physical activities, face-to-face socializing, and sleep.
Okay, so it's not the tech itself, it's what the tech replaces in our day.
Exactly. And the people who are thriving in this highly digital environment aren't the ones who just reject it all, throw their phones in a lake, and move to a cabin.
So that sounds nice sometimes.
It does sound nice.
Yeah.
But the successful individuals are those who employ strict digital literacy and boundary setting strategies. We have to purposefully manage the tech, or it manages us.
Because the algorithm's only goal is engagement. Your goal is a good night's sleep. So you have to actively enforce your goal.
Exactly. You have to dictate the parameters, or the default algorithms will dictate them for you.
So if managing our personal tech requires this much intentional effort just to wake up rested, how on earth do we handle the sheer velocity of technological change as it starts to alter the physical world outside our homes?
Right. For our long-term survival, we have to look at the macro policies and the extreme frontiers of human expansion.
Huh.
Let's start with the physical layout of our cities and the impending death of ownership.
The death of car ownership. This is such a cool concept.
Hmm.
The best way to visualize this shift with autonomous vehicle networks is to think of it like a private elevator in a high-rise apartment building.
Okay, walk us through that analogy.
You don't own the elevator, you don't pay for its routine maintenance, you don't buy insurance for it, and you certainly don't park it in your living room at night.
No, that would be ridiculous.
Right. You just press a button in the hallway, the elevator arrives, it takes you to your floor, and then it immediately leaves to help someone else in the building. That is exactly what a global network of autonomous cars will be. You subscribe to the network, you don't own the vehicle.
And the ripple effects of that transition are monumental. I mean, it eliminates the need for vast parking lots, which fundamentally redesigns urban real estate.
Think of all the space we'll get back.
Exactly. But it also obliterates millions of jobs in driving, delivery, and logistics. Which brings us to a massive policy challenge. Economists have outlined a framework of 10 major things society needs to solve to survive this transition.
And we are talking about everything from rethinking antitrust laws to redesigning intellectual property.
Right. But one of the most critical solutions comes from the economist Robert Shiller. He proposes a concept called livelihood insurance.
Okay, so how does that actually differ from traditional unemployment insurance?
Well, traditional unemployment insurance pays you temporarily while you look for another job in your current field. But livelihood insurance is designed to insure against the specific risk of your entire occupation permanently disappearing due to automation.
Oh, wow. So if your whole career path is just gone.
Yes. You can't fake your whole industry being wiped out by an algorithm, so it protects the worker without creating the moral hazard of someone simply choosing not to work. Shiller also suggests something called the inequality indexation of the tax system.
Okay, this is brilliant. Because right now, when wealth inequality gets severe, politicians argue for years to pass a single relief bill or tax hike. But the sources explain indexation like a thermostat in your house.
Tax thermostat, exactly.
You pre-program the legislation today so that if the mathematical measure of wealth inequality hits a specific temperature, a specific threshold, the tax rate for the wealthiest brackets automatically ticks up, and safety net funds automatically deploy.
No voting, no political gridlock. The math just triggers the policy.
We should definitely clarify here. The sources aren't taking a political side on whether taxes should or shouldn't go up. It's just exploring the mechanics of how an automated policy trigger would work to avoid legislative gridlocks.
Exactly. It's just removing the bitter partisan fighting from the crisis moment and relying on pre-agreed mathematical triggers. It acts as an automatic shock absorber for the economy.
And we're going to need those shock absorbers, especially as we push toward the ultimate frontier, space colonization.
Yes. This is where physics and economics collide.
This part of the research is absolutely wild. If we establish a colony on Mars, traditional centralized banking literally stops working just because of the laws of physics.
It's a brilliant physical constraint. Mars, depending on its orbital position, has up to a 20-minute radio delay with Earth.
Right, because of the speed of light.
Exactly. So if you are standing in a colony on Mars and you try to buy a coffee with a traditional centralized credit card, that signal has to travel all the way to a server in New York to verify your funds and then travel all the way back.
That is a 40-minute round trip for a single transaction. The credit card terminal would time out, the server would simply give up waiting.
Yes. Centralized banking service physically cannot function across interplanetary distances. Therefore, a decentralized blockchain ledger isn't just a speculative digital asset in space. It becomes a physical necessity for an interplanetary economy.
That is mind-bending. The wild river of decentralized finance might actually be the only financial water that can flow on Mars.
Mars will require its own local decentralized ledger that operates independently and only periodically syncs up with Earth's financial state. When you connect all of these threads, from the AI assisting the teacher in the classroom, to the smart plugs regulating our sleep, to the autonomous cars reshaping our cities, to the Martian economy, the core challenge is glaringly obvious.
And what is that core challenge,
Yeah,
ultimately?
the technology is moving at an exponential pace. It doubles and then it doubles again. But human biology and human psychology are strictly linear.
Right.
Our brains are running the exact same cognitive hardware as our mammoth hunting ancestors.
I love that phrase. We are running 21st century software on Pleistocene hardware.
Exactly. The ultimate challenge of our time is not engineering the autonomous cars or successfully building the Mars colonies. The real challenge is managing the human transition. How do we adapt our economic policies, our educational structures, and our daily habits fast enough so that society doesn't fracture under the stress of that velocity?
So let's synthesize what this all means for you listening. Technology is an undeniable force, and it's currently decoupling productivity from traditional labor. It's reshaping our schools, freeing teachers from data processing so they can actually mentor students.
And it's forcing our centralized banks to build infrastructure around decentralized protocols.
Right. And it's creeping into our living rooms, demanding that we actively manage our digital boundaries before the algorithms manage our sleep and our sanity. The biggest takeaway here is that this future isn't some autonomous machine taking over. It's a garden of forking paths. Every piece of code written, every smart home routine established, and every economic policy drafted is a choice. We still have the agency to choose how we apply these tools.
And as we consider those choices, there is one final concept from the sources that pushes the boundaries of everything we've discussed. It's the impending collision of gaming, esports, and the macroeconomy.
Oh, this is the perfect thought to end on.
We historically think of the digital world and the physical world as entirely separate spaces. But imagine a very near future where a teenager is playing a highly immersive, AI-generated virtual reality role-playing game. Inside that game, they spend hours mining a rare digital item.
Right, like a rare sword, a spaceship, or a piece of virtual real estate.
Exactly. They take that digital asset and sell it on a decentralized marketplace for cryptocurrency. And then they take that cryptocurrency and use it to pay for their real-world physical rent, their physical groceries, and their healthcare.
Wow. When the boundary between playing in a virtual universe and working in the physical world completely disappears, what will it actually mean to have a job? We started this deep dive looking for a clean, comforting understanding of our economic future. But instead, we found a landscape where the tools of measurement are being redesigned by algorithms, and the reality they are measuring is increasingly digital. The great decoupling isn't just about labor and productivity anymore. It's about decoupling our economic survival from physical space entirely. Something for you to ponder the next time you log on.